For today's project, you're going to need paper and pencil and some straight edges. I prefer a ruler, but if you have a hardback book, that will work too. I'm going to ask you to begin tracing shapes with corners. So that can include squares, rectangles, triangles, trapezoids, and parallelograms. Fill half of your page with multiple shapes and make sure these shapes have corners. So avoid ovals and avoid hearts and circles, please. Filling your page with shapes, triangles, trapezoids, and parallelograms. I'm putting all my shapes on the top half of my paper. You don't have to do it this way, but we will be creating something called one-point perspective here in a minute. Now I'm adding my 1 point. So notice here at the bottom I just make a dot. And a dot and a point, that will mean the same thing. I'm lining up my corner of my triangle and reaching out all the way to the dot there at the bottom. I'm moving my ruler slowly so that I can line up my corners of my shape down to that dot or that 1 point. When I remove my ruler, it appears as that triangle is now a triangular prism. I'm going to do the same thing up here for the rectangle to make it appear as if it is a rectangular prism. I'm reaching the corner down to the dot and continue going in this direction. Watch out for neighboring shapes. You don't want to run a line straight through them. Looks like these two corners of my parallelogram and my rectangle are going to share a line. Oops, I accidentally made a line in the corner that I didn't care to have. So we're working in pencil, just erase that. I should also mention that I'm working with the 3 shapes that are closest to my points. There's my dog walking through the video, casting a shadow. Creating these 2 rectangular prisms and 2 rectangular prisms and 1 triangular prism. Now I'm going to move back to the shapes that are further away from my point. The shapes are going to kind of run into those first 3, so my lines are going to be a lot shorter. I still want to make sure that my ruler is touching the point, the 1 point perspective, and then the corner of the shape. Sometimes you'll have to wiggle your ruler back and forth to see how far you need to run your line down and where it might run into another one of your 3D shapes. Keep on going till you reach all of the corners of your shapes that you can possibly reach. As you finish drawing your lines to every corner of your shapes, you can go ahead and stop here. Remember, this is called 1 point perspective. And here's a way to shorten your shapes. Using your ruler, run parallel lines to the very top face of your 3D forms and erase the lines below that reach all the way to the point. You'll repeat these parallel lines over and over again if you want your effect to look like your 3D forms are sitting on a table or a surface area or the ground, as opposed to reaching and almost exploding from that one point. Notice how every time I create my parallel lines, I first line my ruler up to the line of the original face that I drew and slowly glide the ruler down so I can remain parallel. Parallel lines will help you draw more realistic 3D forms. And don't be afraid to use your ruler and work slowly, drawing lightly in pencil. You might find that you'll erase frequently when getting started in this drawing technique. If you like color like I do, I recommend using colored pencil to give each face of your 3D shapes some value. And value means the lightness and darkness of a color. So I'm using colored pencil. This colored pencil, when you get it wet, looks more like paint, so I also tried that too. I am using a dark value on one face and a lighter value on the other. Again, this is a time-lapse video, so it's going really quickly.